Test. Good morning, Dharma brothers and sisters. Welcome to Buddhist Fellowship. How are you feeling today? Good, great. All right, I'm Ratna. I'm very happy to see all of you again and very happy to welcome all of you to Buddhist Fellowship. So today we are very privileged to have Bhante Sunyo to continue the teaching series at BF Sunday service. So before we invite Bhante to share with us, I'd like to invite all of you to silence your mobile phone so that not to disrupt the proceedings of the service today. And with that, I'd like to invite all of you to put your hands together in angelic positions as we start our morning puja. Salutation to the Triple Gem. Let us pay respect to the Triple Gem. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagawa Buddhang Bhagawantang Abhivademi. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Please put your palms together to partake in the offerings to the Buddha. The offering of the 5 items allow us to express our gratitude to the Buddha and serves as a symbol to help us remember the teachings. Please join wholeheartedly and read the verses together. Offering of light. Light symbolizes wisdom. May the light of Dharma dispel the darkness of ignorance. Offering of incense. Incense symbolizes the fragrance of pure moral conduct. This reminds us to cultivate good conduct. Offering of water. Water symbolizes purity, clarity, and calmness. It reminds us to practice the Buddha's teachings to cleanse one's mind, which is full of desires, will, and delusions, to attain the state of purity. Offering of fruits. Fruits symbolize the ultimate fruits of enlightenment, which is our goal. They also remind us that all actions will have their effects. Offering of flowers. Flowers symbolize impermanence. The freshness, fragrance, and beauty of flowers are impermanent. This reminds us that we should all live in the present. Remembering thus, we should reduce our cravings and attachment. Let us pay homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Let us recollect the sublime qualities of the Buddha. Iti piso bhagava arahang sama sambuddho vijacharana sampano sugato lokavidu anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati Satta dewa manusanang buddho bhagavati. Let us recollect the sublime qualities of the Dhamma. Swakato bhagavata dhammo sanditiko akariko ehipasiko opanaiko pacatang veditabo vinyuhiti. Let us recollect the sublime qualities of the Sangha. Supatipano bhagavato sawaka sangho ujupatipano bhagavato sawaka sangho nyaya patipano bhagavato sawaka sangho Samicipatipano bhagavato sawaka sangho yadidang catari purisa yugani atha purisa pugala esa bhagavato sawaka sangho ahuneyo pahuneyo dakhineyo anjalikaraneyo anuttarang punyaketang lokasati. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Before we invite Bhante, let me just share a short introduction of Bhante Sunyo. Bhante Sunyo was born in the Netherlands in 2013. After finishing university, he moved to Bodhinyana Monastery to become a monk. And on the day of his ordination, he met his best friend ever in life, his robes. And he hopes to never have to leave this friend behind. He also has a wide knowledge and expertise in the Pali language and has been teaching Pali at Bodhinyana Monastery for the past 6 years. In October 2020, he partnered Ajahn Brahmali to deliver the Early Buddhism Series, Dependent Origination Workshop. Bhante Sunyo continues to inspire us and is a testament that Buddhism is alive and kicking in today's world. So without further ado, we would like to invite all of you to put your hands together to welcome Bhante. Welcome, Bhante.
Thank you.
Let's invite everyone to pay respect to Bhante Sunyo.
This is Sunyako, which means little Sunyo. And my mother made this when I was in the Netherlands last week. She gave it to me. So this is my little brother.
May I invite Bhante to lead us in 3 refuge as well as 5 precepts.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So I will say Namo Tassa 3 times, and then you repeat it after me. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. So far, so good. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tisarana gamana nittitang. Panati pata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adina dana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kamesu miccachara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Surameraya majjapamadatthana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Imani panchasikkhapadani silena sugating yanti, silena bhoga sampada, silena nibbutting yanti, tasma silang visodaye. Sadhu. Nice, excellent. Okay.
by Dhamma talk.
Oh yes, I would almost forgot about the meditation. So yes, we will do 10 minutes guided meditation, and then I will try to give a talk. There's some people still coming in. I'll wait for them to sit down before we start. So, for the next 10 minutes, I invite you just to be here in this place at this moment of time. There's no need to think about the past or future. Just be here with whatever you are experiencing right now. You may experience some feelings in your body, sounds of the air conditioning, thoughts or emotions in your mind. And whatever you experience, just allow it to be. Have a kind attitude towards whatever you're experiencing. There's no need to achieve anything, to go anywhere, to reach anything. All we need to do is to be here in this moment. And find some rest from all the running around that we otherwise often do. And just smile at whatever experiences you have, whatever sounds or feelings that happen. Just be kind to it and gentle. This is the way life is right now, and it's good enough. And through this attitude of kindness and things being good enough, see if you can find some relaxation and peace in this place and at this time. See if you can relax your body and mind to some extent, just by allowing them to be as they are. Just allow life to come to you. Whatever happens, just allow it in. And give equal room for pleasant and unpleasant experiences. They're both okay. They both allow to be here. And if your mind starts thinking about the past or the future, then just smile at it and gently remind yourself to just be here and now. All right. Excellent. 10 minutes is too short, isn't it? Shall we do another hour? Huh? I just got started with 10 minutes. All right, just let the other people come in. Welcome everybody to the Buddhist Fellowship. And thank you for inviting me over to stay here and meet all of you. And also thank you for inviting me to give a talk, which I suppose you think I have something wise to say. I don't know about that yet. We'll see what comes out. But definitely about meditation, and as I said, 10 minutes, you're just getting started. So it's always, I always regret ringing the bell at the end. Sometimes I think, should I just keep going and see when the people think I fall asleep or something? Because you can find a lot of happiness in meditation. And I remember last rains retreat, which is like a 3-month silent period that we spent in a monastery in Bodhinyana where I live. I live with Ajahn Brahmali, who many of you will know. And during last rains retreat, there was this perfect day in the forest. I was walking in the forest in the hills of Bodhinyana Monastery, and there were all the little nice birds, chirp, chirp, chirp. Not the noisy birds that we all also have over there, like the cockatoos. Those were all gone, and now it was just all the quiet, nice birds. And it was not hot like it can be sometimes. Well, not during the rains retreat, but it was the perfect temperature. And it was a sunset, and I could see the sunset in the hills. Really nice and peaceful. And some of you might hear this and think, wow, I wish I was there. That sounds perfect. But I just wanted to go back to my hut as fast as possible so I could meditate. Because to me, that was much more peaceful than even the sunset and the birds. We live in a forest to give us some sort of peace as monks, but the real deep peace we don't find in the forest. We find it inside our own minds. So then it doesn't matter where you live, whether you live in a forest or in a city like Singapore. You can find the same peace within. You don't need the quiet birds. You can also have the trucks passing by. That's fine as well. You can find the same peace within. And this piece of meditation actually can bring you lots of benefits. And today I want to speak about some of those benefits you might get from meditation. And Ratana, did you say the title of the talk when you introduced? No? You did? No. Good. Good. Don't say it. Because I had to submit the titles for the talk 2 or 3 months ago. Because you have the Ministry of Manpower here. To me that sounds like something from like Harry Potter or something. Like the Ministry of Magic, the Ministry of Manpower. Anyway, the Ministry of Manpower needed to know the title and the subject of the talks 2 months beforehand. So I could get like an entry pass to work here. They think this is work. Well, I'm just enjoying myself. Anyway, I had to submit the titles, but we don't prepare talks 2 months in advance. So 5 months. So it was 5 months. Yes, that's what I said on Friday. But then somebody told me it was 2 months ago. Maybe they submitted it 2 months ago. Doesn't matter. I had to think of it a long time ago. And then I just said, One sutta says that all the teachings of the Buddha fit within the Four Noble Truths. So I just called my talks Four Noble Truths Part 1, Four Noble Truths Part 2. And then I can say whatever I want, and it fits under there. So this is Four Noble Truths Part 2. And the Four Noble Truths of the Buddha, they are about suffering in life and how we can overcome it. And there's many different levels to this. There's many different kinds of suffering, many different kinds of uneasiness we can have in life. And the Four Noble Truths you can look at in various ways to address the problems in life. And therefore, whatever you talk about as a monastic or lay person, if you talk about Buddhism, it's always part of the Four Noble Truths. So many of you were here already Friday, but for those who weren't here, I said if you invite me over again to teach, then I will do Four Noble Truths Part 3. And then Part 4. And we can go on for a long time like that. So today, it's Four Noble Truths Part 2, but I only thought about it maybe yesterday when I was speaking here. Or maybe this was also Friday anyway. I explained how to get into Singapore, I had to get a proof of my COVID vaccinations. Like they call it international vaccination certificate. I had to get that. And I only realized like 2 days before I went to Singapore that I had to get it. And now my problem is that I am from the Netherlands and I got all my vaccinations in Australia. So I had to get the vaccination passport from Australia, with the Australian official bodies, whatever they were called, Vaccination Institute or something like that. Anyway, so I called them up and said, I need this certificate, but the website wasn't allowing me to do it. And I asked them, why doesn't the website allow me to do it? And they said, because apart from your vaccination, you've never been to the doctor in Australia. And apparently, if you don't go to the doctor, they don't think you exist or something, I don't know. But then I realized, I have been sick sometimes actually in Australia, but a few times I solved it with meditation instead, and not by going to the doctor. And it's actually been it's been much longer that I haven't been to the doctor. I only went to the doctor for being sick last time when I was 6 years old, when my parents took me. And in hindsight, I think they didn't have to take me either. Anyway, Ajahn Brahmali also often talks about how meditation can help with curing sickness and preventing sickness. And I want to talk a bit about that today as well. Does that sound like a okay topic? Yeah? Anybody want something else? No, we're all happy? Yeah, we're all happy because we all realize we all can get sick from time to time. And sickness is one of those kind of suffering that's really not nice. Yeah, it's really, when you're sick, we all know you really feel bad and you wish you weren't sick. So the Buddha also spoke about sickness as one of the more severe types of suffering. And we can actually prevent certain sicknesses by not only meditation, but by living the Buddhist path. Not all types of sickness, I want to say that clearly in advance, before I say anything else. Don't think that all types of sickness you can prevent through Buddhism or meditation. Even the Buddha got sick as well, as most of us will know. And of course, he also died from being sick. So even the Buddha got sick. But there's also suttas where the Buddha got sick, and then he reflected on the enlightenment factors, on things having to do with Buddhism and meditation. And because of that, he got better. Actually, he got better. Yeah. So that's what I would like to talk about a little bit. Give you some ideas of how you can use your practice to maybe avoid certain sicknesses. But not all of them, of course. And also I want to say I'm not a doctor. Yeah, so this is disclaimer. Not official health advice. Small letters should be at the bottom, you know. I don't know if you ever put this on YouTube, but small letters at the bottom here. Disclaimer. This is not official health advice. Consult your doctor if you feel unwell. They always put those small letters. Anyway, what was I going to say? Well, we all get sick from time to time. That's one thing. And there was also a man who got sick once and got a phone call from his doctor. Ring, ring, ring. Hello? Hello, this is the doctor. I've got some bad news for you. What is it, doctor? You've only got 3 more months to live. Oh no, sorry, doctor. I think I can't pay my bills in 3 months. Okay, I'll give you 6 months then. Sometimes it's nice. Even just laughter is sometimes healthy, because we keep lots of stress in our bodies sometimes. And laughter relieves some of that stress. And those stresses can sometimes make us sick. So sometimes there's certain monks who may be my teacher, who may make a lot of bad jokes. But that is not just for fun. There's actually reasons behind that. And one of them is to relieve some of the stress. Yeah. So another joke. Would you like another one? So the man said, "Oh, 6 months, doctor, to live. What should I do?" And the doctor said, "Well, what you could do is visit the talks by Venerable Sunyo at the Buddhist Fellowship." And the man said, "Oh, thank you, doctor. Will that make me live any longer?" And the doctor said, "No, but it'll feel like the 6 longest months of your life." Usually I say that not just my name, but all the monks in Bodhinyana, their talks. But anyway. So about sickness and using Buddhist practice to avoid certain sicknesses. I said before that sometimes stress can be a cause of sickness. And there's many causes that we can have carry some stress or negativity inside of us. And this kind of negativity and stress is often a cause of disease. And I'm not just saying that as a monk, that's very well realized within medical practice as well, that to avoid stress is a healthy thing. I think I'm not saying anything new here, and not anything like you're mind blown to hear this for the first time. Actually, even what do they call it? Health insurance companies, they realize this. And when I was in the Netherlands, I usually don't listen to the news or the radio, but my parents did when I was in the Netherlands. So on the radio, sometimes I heard insurance company commercials, because there is something going on with the insurance companies in the Netherlands, and now they're all bringing up their commercials to try and get customers to change. And one of the commercials said, if you come to us, we give you free meditation classes, free mindfulness exercises. And then I said to my father, well, they just do that not to lure people in, but when people take their mindfulness classes, they get less sick. And that's actually proven in research. So then the insurance company actually makes a profit from those classes because they have less people making claims. Yeah, it's true. And even like company leadership, they get their employers to do these kind of meditation classes because they realize that their employers get more healthy and also maybe get more efficient. So there is something in meditation that helps us get less sick. But it's not just meditation. I'll come back to the meditation in a moment, but it's not just meditation in Buddhist practice that can help us to be more healthy. Because it's also, before you took the 5 precepts. And as Buddhists, we try to live a kind life, compassionate life, and to try as best as we can to be good people. We took the precepts not to kill any living beings, to not steal, not lie, and not engage in sexual misconduct, and so forth. And by keeping these precepts, we actually can find a certain happiness inside of ourselves. And I want you all to realize this, that you don't keep the precepts because somebody tells you to, or because that is the thing to do as a Buddhist. We keep the precepts because we realize that there is a lot of peace and happiness to be found inside of that. Just the freedom from remorse is one of the types of happiness that the Buddha talked about. You will all have done some not so good things in life, I suppose. Is there anybody here who never done anything bad in life? Then please raise your hand. And please come give the talk instead. We've all done some bad things in life. And if you recall the bad thing in life, you feel tense inside. You feel unwell. You start creating some of the causes for sickness. So that's one of the reasons we try our best to prevent doing bad things. And instead, we try as much as we can to do the good things. Yeah. And then actually don't forget to reflect upon the good things that you do. This is very important. Don't just do them, but actually recall, yeah, I am a good person. Of course, none of us is perfect. You can never be perfect. But we do our best, and that is something very, very beautiful. And that is why I'm so happy to see all of you here. Just coming here, to me, is a good thing. I said before, I'm supposed to say something wise, but maybe I only say stupid things. But then still, this meeting is worthwhile, even if I say only things and you forget it straight away, or stupid things. It's just us being here together with the intention to learn and become wiser and more compassionate people. That alone gives me so much happiness to be around all of you. So don't forget that. You are what I call the crème de la crème of people in the world. It's like the top notch of people, I think. That's what all of you are. But you don't often, many people don't realize that. They focus only on the bad things that they do. Or they focus on it way, way, way too much. And this was also one of the questions yesterday when we had meditation little day. They called it a retreat, but it was just a day of meditation. Yeah, a retreat. Doesn't matter what we call it. Anyway, one of the questions was, I feel bad about myself. Somebody sitting there asked the question. And this is a very natural thing for many people, to focus on the bad things that they did and to give that much more importance than the good things that they also do. And please, try to change that around. Okay, we do bad things. You all admitted that you've done bad things because nobody raised their hand when I asked, did you do any, when I asked, is there anybody who never did anything bad? So, now I ask the opposite question. Have you ever done anything that might be considered bad? Please raise your hand. Okay, lots of hands. And those who don't raise their hand, probably falling asleep, not paying attention. And now please raise your hand if you forgive the other people who raise their hands for whatever they have done. Yeah, we forgive each other. See how many hands there were. All these hands, they were raised. They said they forgive you. You who is listening right now, for whatever you have done. And often it's much more easy to forgive other people, but to forgive ourselves is so hard often. But this is a very important practice in Buddhism, to learn how to do this, to forgive ourselves. And this is why we practice compassion and loving kindness. And from loving kindness and compassion and understanding, wisdom, we understand, okay, we did those things because of conditions, and it wasn't really our fault. We were just sort of driven there by nature, and we couldn't prevent it in a way. So always forgive yourself for anything you might consider bad. And that reminds me of a little story that actually I read on the internet before. And that story is about two friends who were traveling through the desert. They were walking for a long time in the desert. And in the desert it was very hot. So they started arguing because they got hot-headed as well as hot body. So like Singapore is also quite hot, but the desert was even hotter. And no air conditioning in the desert like we have here. So they started arguing. And at some point, one of the friends slapped the other friend in the face. And then the friend who was slapped in the face bowed down and wrote in the sand, "Here my friend slapped me in the face." Next day, they arrived at a little oasis where there was some water to drink, and the friend went to drink the water. But it was much more water than this, so he fell in. Boom. Then the other friend rescued him and pulled him out of the water. And then the first friend sit there. Right. Got a chisel and wrote in a rock, "Here my friend saved me." And then the other friend asked, "Why did you write in the sand, 'Here my friend hit me,' and you wrote in the rock, 'Here my friend saved me'?" And then the first friend said, "Whenever somebody does something bad to us, we write it in the sand so the wind of compassion and forgiveness can blow it away. But when somebody does something kind to us, we write it in rock so we can never forget it, and it is there forever with us." And then the friend hug. Yes. So, now the story is with two friends, but also be your own friend like that. When you do something stupid, write it in the sand and forget about it. Let your own compassion take it away. When you do something good, for some reason, that is what we usually write in the sand. We forget about it very quickly. But that is the kind of thing we should remember and recall and like write it in the rock so we can always remember it. And then even the very small things you do in life, if you don't forget them, they can be a source of happiness. And there's many suttas that talk about this, where our virtue is the source of happiness. And now, to get back to the topic of health, it's this kind of happiness that takes away lots of remorse and lots of stress inside of us. I think most of you can relate that when you feel bad about yourself, that you're more likely to get sick. And when you feel happy and content, you're less likely to get sick. So this is how those 5 precepts we took before is one way that they can prevent certain kind of suffering of sickness. And this is not something to take for granted. It's something that you can develop, actually. Develop the ability to overcome or prevent sicknesses, both through this kind of reflection and to become a more happy person, but also through the meditation as well. And also through the power of the mind, you can prevent and overcome sicknesses. And that is something also realized by science as well, not just by the Buddha or by monastics like me, because who of you have heard of the placebo effect? Yeah, the placebo effect. All of us, most of us will know. That is the effect that when you take something that you think is a medicine, but it's actually not a medicine, it's just a sugar pill or whatever, then you do actually become better, often, or at least partly. And this has been studied quite a lot in the medical field. And as I said, I'm not a doctor, so I only know a tiny, tiny little bit of what I've heard here and there. But it's things like when people are told that a certain procedure or medicine can lower their blood pressure and they take that pill, but the pill doesn't actually do anything, then still the doctors can measure and they see that their blood pressure goes down. Or people are told that a certain pill reduces headaches, but it doesn't actually nothing in that pill. But then they still report having less headaches afterwards. And this is the power of the mind to actually reduce our illnesses, realized in science. And it's also the power of the mind to create illnesses, because there's also the opposite of the placebo effect, which is less well known, but it's called the nocebo effect. Sounds funny, but that you can look it up afterwards on your phone. Don't go looking up while I'm talking, that unless you're really, really interested. But just trust me, there is the nocebo effect as well, which is less well known, but also very well studied. And this happens when patients are given a pill and actually told that it will do something bad, or given a pill or some other procedure or whatever, and they're told that they will get certain side effects. And then actually, those side effects happen even if the doctor wasn't telling the truth. When they give a pill and they said, oh, this might give you a headache, and never before has that ever been reported, but when the doctor says so, this will give you a headache, maybe, then many of the people actually do get headaches. So the mind creates these headaches themselves. And not just headaches, even like increased heart rate or other pains. As I said, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know the details, but the mind can create these things and can also solve these things partly. And this is something shown by science, but also monks like me have experienced these kind of things for ourselves. And one time in Bodhinyana Monastery, I was getting quite sick. I said I'd never been to a doctor since I was 6, but I have gotten sick sometimes. Not sick enough to go to a doctor, but this time I was really getting a really big nasal infection. Like my nose was really, really runny, and I had a really bad headache, and my eyes were just tearing all the time, constantly, and I was suffering from that and thought, I need to go to bed or something and sleep, and maybe when I wake up, I'll get rid of this. It was really, really quite bad. For a long time, I hadn't felt that bad. So I was about to go to bed and hopefully wake up more healthy. But then I recalled, I am a monk. I should meditate on it first. See what happens. Maybe learn from it. So what I did, cross my legs, sit down, and I did what I told you before in the introduction meditation. Find peace in the present moment, and whatever you experience, allow it to be, and don't wish it to be different. Just open up to it. And that's what I did. And I felt the sickness in my head, especially around my nose. And I focused in on it and get closer and closer. And I can't describe it any else than I went right into the center of the sickness with kindness and compassion. And when I did so, it like exploded. Poof. And at that moment, I knew it was gone. And I felt better straight away. And instead of going to bed, I meditated until 4 in the morning and didn't go to bed at all that day. Or maybe later in the morning, I can't remember. But these are the kind of experiences that tell you that meditation can actually do this. This was not a coincidence. I know I solved this kind of... It was just a nasal infection, nothing major. But I know I solved it with meditation and not by any medicine or going to the doctor or not by going to bed, but by meditation, by kindness and by kind attention. And I described it like going right into the center of it and then the sickness exploding. That's the best way I can describe it. And now, funny thing, 2 months later or something, Ajahn Brahm gave a Dhamma talk. And he told us about how Ajahn Chah once got very severe malaria. I think he got double malaria, 2 kinds of strains at the same time. And Ajahn Chah, that is Ajahn Brahm's teacher, lived in rural Thailand, the north of Thailand, where at the time there was no medicines, especially not for the monks. So what did Ajahn Chah do? Well, he couldn't go to the doctor, so he meditated on it. And Ajahn Brahm said that Ajahn Chah described it that he went right into the center of the malaria and then it exploded. So Ajahn Brahm used the same kind of words that I use to describe my experience. So I know Ajahn Chah did the exact same thing, but with a much more severe disease. So I can't speak from experience that you can solve malaria, but some monks have done so. They solved malaria through meditation. And this shows you how powerful the mind can be at curing certain illnesses, or at least assist in curing them. And it's also the power of the mind to create illnesses sometimes. So I'm saying this to you, so when you get sick, what is your first response? Oh no, sickness, go away. You shouldn't be here, I should be healthy. Is that how you think? Often we do. And through that attitude, often we make the sickness only worse, because we create more stress inside of us. And more stress means more, it takes energy away from the body instead of creating more energy. And even just the attitude of ill will towards the illness often can make it worse. Again, I'm not speaking here in black and white. There's always gray areas. Some illnesses you can't solve in this way. So, again, the disclaimer at the bottom. But definitely, very often, the way you look at things changes or has a lot of influence on the thing. And also don't underestimate the power of your minds, because I'm talking about Ajahn Chah here, and you might think, oh, I'm not like Ajahn Chah, I can't do that. But our minds are much more similar than you might think. And you might actually also, you do actually also have that kind of ability inside of you to solve or cure, is the word actually, certain sicknesses through meditation. And also to prevent getting sick as well. But you also have the ability to make illnesses worse. Who knows the story of the demon who entered the king's palace that Ajahn Brahm often tells? Yeah, this is a problem when you go somewhere that Ajahn Brahm already been many times. I have no more stories to tell. Anyway, I'm going to tell it anyway, just to remind you. Because often Ajahn Brahm tells this simile of the demon who entered the king's palace. And then the demon stands for bad emotions we have inside of us. But you can also look at this simile that the demon stands for illnesses. So I'm going to tell this simile and you'll see what I mean for those who don't know yet. So there was once a beautiful palace, and in the beautiful palace lived a very kind and compassionate king. And the kind and compassionate king was always there to give good advice to his people. And this king, as I said, was very kind and compassionate. So never did he send anybody to jail. The castle didn't even have the jail. It was just the best king you could ever wish for. And the king gave his advice sitting on a beautiful throne made of gold and marble. Sorry, I'm not native English, sometimes I don't know the words, but gold and marble and nice satin cushions. Very beautiful, and nobody else but the king was allowed to sit on this beautiful throne. One day, though, the king left to another country to, what did he do there? I think in the original story he went on a hunting trip or something. But my king was the kindest king. So he went to do peace negotiations. Yes. He had to go away for peace negotiations with the neighboring country. And when the king was away, there was a demon who came into the palace. And the demon was very ugly and very stinky. And he had teeth sticking out and horns. And the demon was very strong. So the guards tried to stop the demon from coming into the palace because he was not allowed in there. But the demon walked in anyway and pushed aside the guards. And what did the demon do? You know, he sat right on the king's throne. And he crossed his arms and just sat there and looking over the people from the beautiful throne of the king. And the demon was very filthy, and he left all the filth on their throne. So the guards and the other people of the kingdom were like, "You vile creature, you don't belong on this throne. Get off, go away, you stupid, nasty, ugly beast." And with every angry word that the guards and the people said to the demon grew bigger and became more ugly. His teeth became bigger, and his horns became bigger, and the demon got bigger and more stinky. Started to smell like rotten eggs. But the guards, they didn't know what was going on, and they said, go away, you don't belong here, you shouldn't sit on the king's throne." And of course, even more stinky, even more ugly, the demon became. And he got so big that he couldn't barely fit in the palace anymore, in the castle. He grew right up to the ceiling. It's like he started this big, and now he was this big. And luckily though, the king soon came back to the palace. And when he got back to the palace, he realized what was going on. And he went up to the demon and said, "Welcome, nice demon. Welcome to my palace. How are you doing today? Is the temperature right? Do I need to change the air conditioning? Would you like a cup of tea or coffee? Something else?" And with every word that the king said, the demon got smaller and smaller and started shrinking. And very soon, the demon was right back to the original size that he was when he first walked into the palace. But the king continued and said, "Really, are you doing okay? Can I give you a foot massage maybe? Rub your back, anything I can do to help you." And with every word, the demon kept shrinking and shrinking. Soon he was the size of a normal human being, but the king continued being kind, and the demon shrank more and more and more, and soon he was only this big. But the king continued, and the demon kept shrinking more and more and more. Got smaller and smaller. Okay, I shouldn't break it, but you... My mother would not be happy, and neither would I. And he got smaller and smaller, until at some point, poof, the demon disappeared. And this is a simile for how we can relate to sicknesses. When we say, he's heavier on one side, I think. There we go. When we say, go away, you stupid sickness, you don't belong here, I should be healthy. Why am I always the one who gets sick? Go away, you sickness. Then the sickness often gets bigger and bigger and more nasty. But if we're kind to the sickness, then it often reduces, gets smaller and smaller. So, next time you are sick, try to relate to it like this, with kindness and compassion. Realize, okay, it's natural to be sick. I allow the sickness to be. And maybe see if you can solve the sickness, or at least reduce it in this way. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I said before about COVID, the thing, and when I actually was going to travel to Europe a month ago, the weekend, I was going to travel on the Tuesday, leave from Australia to Europe. And the weekend before, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, I spent in the temple in Nallamara in Perth, together with another monk, which we call our Upatak. And we were together the whole weekend, sitting at the same table, talking together, traveling in the car together, being in the same house together, what we do in the temple. We don't have separate huts there, we live in the same house. And what happened, Monday, after I got back from the weekend in town, during that weekend, the monk was sick all the time. And he said, well, I did a COVID test, but it was negative, so it's not COVID. And Monday he did another test, and you guess what happened? He had the COVID. And I was going to travel on Tuesday. And if you have COVID, you're not allowed to travel. And Ajahn Brahm knew I was going to travel, to go to Poland to teach a retreat, then to see my parents, who I haven't seen for almost 5 years because of COVID. And then I was going to come here. So if I got COVID, I couldn't do all those things. And the people in Poland would have to do their own retreat. And I wouldn't be able to see my parents wouldn't see me. I couldn't take little Sunyo along. And I wouldn't be here. So, this is what happened. When Ajahn Brahm heard that the Upatak, the other monk, got the COVID and that I was with him for the whole weekend, he came to me before we went on the rice pindapat, when we received the food. And he looked me in the eyes and said, Sunyo, you are not allowed to get sick. If you get sick, you are disobedient to me. And just like you, I was laughing, because I thought Ajahn Brahm was making a joke. But when I laughed, his face remained like this. He was being serious. He was not joking. And I realized that later when I went back to my hut and meditated, and I was focusing on my body, just like I told you to do before. And I actually felt some tiredness and a beginning of some sort of sickness actually starting inside of me. I don't know if it was COVID or something else, but at that moment I realized, Ajahn Brahm told me not to get sick, so I can't get the COVID. And something inside of me clicked and sort of did not allow me to become more sick. So next day before I went traveling, I went to Ajahn Brahm. Hello, there's a person looking through the window. Oh, oh, it was funny, come back. Oh, okay. Anyway, I went to Ajahn Brahm to pay my respects with what we do before we leave, to pay respect to our teacher. So I bowed down and I said, thank you, Ajahn, for not allowing me to become sick. I'm not sure if it helped 100%, but it helped a little bit for sure. And then he said yes. And then I for sure knew he was serious. He said, often people allow themselves to become sick when it's not the time. And he said that often very busy people who are like CEOs of companies or whatever, they're healthy always, and then they go on a holiday, then they suddenly get sick. And he says because they don't allow themselves to become sick when they have work to do. And I realized that I did sort of the same thing when I did not get COVID. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten it anyway. You know, there's more to it than just not allowing it, of course. But at least it helped a little bit. And maybe some of you might have experienced similar things, that you know you were going to get sick, but you did not allow yourself. You used the power of your mind to stop the sickness before it could get any worse. And this kind of power, as I said before, is in all of us. So that's why, one of the reasons why we develop a stronger mind, why we develop the meditation, and through meditation, through our keeping our virtues, we can prevent some illnesses. And that is a good start to reducing suffering in our lives. And it's something I would like to leave you with, that reflection. Next time maybe you get sick, try some of this advice. Yeah, and it's not something I made up. Ajahn Brahm talks about it a lot as well, and it's some in the suttas as well. So if you want to know more, you can probably Google something or whatever. Anyway, that's all I've got to say today. Maybe, if ever I come back, we can do Four Noble Truths Part 3. But for now, I would like to once more thank you for inviting me over. I've only been here for 3 days, but it's been really, really nice. Really nice people, really kind, and nice and warm over here, compared to the Netherlands where it was freezing. So, thank you. And maybe we'll see each other again someday. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bhante Sunyo, for insightful sharing. Maybe we can have like 1 or 2 questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, we can do multiple questions if you want. I think the schedule set until 12 or whatever. But I also want to say, if people feel like they need to go somewhere, then I don't mind if you feel like leaving. But yeah, we have some more time for questions.
Yep. Anyone have any questions?
Ajahn, thanks for the talk. Just now you shared 2 versions. One is to accept that we have sickness. We look into ourselves, overcome it. The other aspect is how we prevent or stop the sickness from popping up. So at what stage we should do whichever. Yeah, one is to receive and one is to get to know sickness, overcome it. How do you know which one to apply?
Oh, well, I don't get sick so often that I am the most experienced in in that. I just gave you a few examples, but I think you just have to try out for yourself. And I suppose when the sickness reaches a certain point, then this, what I call like blocking it, doesn't work anymore. And then you just accept it with kindness. But I focus my talk on trying to overcome or reduce sicknesses, but if I had more time, I would have probably spent more time on just accepting sickness, even if it doesn't reduce it. Because, as I said before, we cannot prevent all sicknesses. And especially when we do get sick, to still be kind towards that sickness, to still be at peace with it. That is the most important thing, because that is our mental development. And the body is not as much in control. It will get sick and it will get old no matter what. But the mind is something we can develop, and we actually can grow, and we can learn to be more compassionate and kind to all sorts of situations in life, including sickness. So that's the most important thing to develop, that's for sure. This thing of blocking sicknesses is nice to know about, and that we have that possibility, but it's not as central to the Buddhist path as the ability to learn to be kind and compassionate to whatever happens.
Anyone else have any questions?
Ajahn, could I tap your understanding of Pali?
Oh, maybe. Of Pali, you say?
Yes, Pali.
Okay.
Yes. So, do you get a different perspective of the suttas after learning more Pali? That's question number one. And subset of question number one is, in the morning chant, it says that Shankara Anicca. And then subsequently, there's an emphasis that Sabbe Sankara Anicca again. So what is your understanding of this? Thank you.
Okay. Well, that last question could be another talk, that's for sure. But to briefly answer, I'll answer both. But the first question is one I get actually quite often, because I teach the Pali in Bodhinyana Monastery, and I've also taught it in another monastery as well, Newbury Monastery. And I've been doing that for many years now. Probably it says that on that bio that they made. That's why you probably asked the question. And very often people ask, oh, should I come to those classes or not? Because how useful is it to learn Pali? I'd rather meditate instead. The monks who come to Bodhinyana Monastery, they don't come there to study. And also myself, when I first became a monk, I just came out of university. And before university, you have high school, of course. And before high school, you have primary school. So learning. And then I came to Bodhinyana Monastery. And then I heard there were more classes. More things to learn, Pali to learn. So at first I was like, no, I'm not coming. Ajahn Brahmali taught those classes at the time. And I'm like, no, I don't want to learn more. But then Ajahn Brahm said to me, it's actually quite useful to learn Pali. And he didn't say why, but he convinced me to go. And so I went to the classes and was taught by Ajahn Brahmali. And what I experienced by learning Pali is people often think or have the idea that if I learn Pali, I will understand the suttas better. I will understand better what the Buddha was talking about. And to me, that's not really so much the case. Because you really understand the suttas and what the Buddha was talking about through experience. By going, especially by going into deep meditations and really seeing life as it really is, that's how you understand what the Buddha was talking about. And this is something that goes way beyond words. Whether it's English or Pali or whatever language, it cannot reach that kind of level of understanding. And it's actually the case that if you don't really understand what the Buddha was talking about, even if your Pali is the best of the best in the world, if you are like, I don't know, as good as Bhikkhu Bodhi in Pali, but if you haven't experienced the Noble Truth for yourself, then you still don't know what the Buddha was talking about. And it even is the case that you can be really good at Pali, but because you don't know what the Buddha was talking about, when you read one thing, you actually filter it and see something else than what the Buddha was actually saying. Yeah. The Buddha sometimes said, what the truth is hard to see. And what some people think is happiness, the noble ones, the Aryas, know to be suffering. And what other people think is suffering, the Aryas know to be happiness. I won't go into detail, but it shows you that our perceptions change when we see the truth as it really is. And then you read Pali differently as well. So to summarize, no, it doesn't change your understanding, in my experience, of what the Buddha said. But for me, it's very helpful to read the Pali because it feels like the Buddha is closer to me when I read the Pali. When you read an English translation, let's say by Bhikkhu Bodhi, you always have Bhikkhu Bodhi's filter on it. So it's like Bhikkhu Bodhi tells you what the Buddha said. But when I can read the Pali for myself, then I can read what the Buddha himself is supposed to have said. Or not just the Buddha, but his disciples as well. So that gives me much more inspiration. And that is what I mainly get out of it. And of course, there's also some things that you can see in Pali that are unable to be translated into English, but that is just minor details. Yeah. So I say that so people don't worry if you can't read Pali or you don't want to study it. I think most of you are never going to study Pali, but that doesn't matter for your understanding of the suttas, really, because the real understanding comes from experience and meditation. Yeah. So that was only question 1, I think. Then there was also a question of Sankhara Anicca, and that was it, right? Yeah. And that means that all the things we experience in life are changing and don't stay the same. That's what that means. Yeah. To answer it very, very briefly, as I said, you could give another talk on that topic, but that's what it means. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bhante. We're just conscious of time because you have to have your lunch before 12.
Maybe. Well, not before 12, actually. I heard it before 1, because we have to have lunch before the sun is at the highest point.
Right.
Yeah, so when we say noon, we mean noon like solar noon. So we don't have to rush.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are okay to have another...
Yeah, we can do another question if there is, but
All right.
yeah, whatever, really.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Everybody's looking around at anybody else. Okay. Well, people... oh, there is a question, actually. Or are you just saying hi? Yeah.
Bhante, is the seven factors of enlightenment, as it is written, it started off with mindfulness, investigation of mental states, effort, joyful interest,
Yes.
tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. Must it go through when you are doing the meditation?
Well, they are in a sequence because they can be developed sequentially. But when you meditate, they also develop side by side as well. But it's just one way of looking at the development of the mind. The mind is very flexible and very... you cannot put things in boxes in life, really. And I say this because in Buddhism we have this tendency to... like we have the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 7 factors of enlightenment. So there has developed over time in Buddhism this tendency to put everything in neat little boxes. But the reason the Buddha taught like this is to make it easy to remember. Like it's easy to remember, 4 Noble Truths, 7 enlightenment factors, and so forth. But in reality, of course, the mind is not 7 factors. So it's one way to look at meditation, yeah. And it starts with sati, which is often translated as mindfulness, but in this context, it means more like memory, or to recall. Recall, for example, as I said before, the good things you did in life. And this is what mindfulness means mostly in this context, and it's actually explained in the suttas in this way. And then you investigate those things that you recollect, or you might investigate the Buddha's teachings that you recollect with sati. That is where the next factor comes in, and then you get the joy, and from that the other factors come one by one. So that is how it is explained in the suttas. So there it is actually sequential, but it's just one way to develop meditation. Yeah.
Bhante, with regard to dependent origination.
Oh yeah, another easy, quick question. No, don't worry, I'm just kidding.
Okay. So anyway, I'm trying to understand which is the genuine, or I'm not sure whether it's genuine now, because I read the Buddha Dasa one.
The what, sorry?
Bhikkhu Buddha Dasa.
Okay.
He wrote a book, and they say Paticca Samuppada is happening now in this lifetime. I also read some of the books. It actually says Paticca Samuppada is in 3 lifetimes.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to see, can you advise me what should I read or do or contemplate to find the...
Yeah, I can advise you, don't read Buddha Dasa's book on that. He may have very wise things to say. I never read him myself, but on dependent origination, that is not correct. It's not what is said in the suttas, because there is definitely explained that birth and death mean, well, what we usually mean by birth and death. When people get born or beings get born, that's what it means, birth, the start of life. And death means the end of life. And it doesn't mean some momentary things, which some people say it is. And if you want more details on that, me and Ajahn Brahmali, I think they wrote it also there, did a course on dependent origination, and there we explained this in a lot of detail, and it's all on the YouTube. But in short, it's funny because me and Ajahn Brahmali and other monks, we sort of, well, not me so much, but Ajahn Brahmali often represents his teachings as like early Buddhism, but in the dependent origination, the view we have is basically the traditional view of the Theravada interpretation of dependent originations, which means it's spans multiple lifetimes. The 4 Noble Truths are really about, the second Noble Truth says the cause of suffering is craving that leads to rebirth, tanha panobhavika. And it's a craving that leads to rebirth that is the cause of suffering. Once you are born, for example, what I talked about, sickness is a given, it's unpreventable. And old age and death, also unpreventable. Well, you might die young, then you don't get old, but it's just the nature of being born that we experience suffering. So therefore, it's being born that is really the reason for all the suffering. And to not be reborn, that is the ultimate aim of Buddhism. And therefore, this is what the Buddha tried to explain with dependent origination, how to not be reborn again. So therefore, it actually refers to multiple lifetimes, yes, and not just moment to moment.
Anyone else have any questions?
Hi, Ajahn. I have very simple question. Nothing about the sutra. I just want to understand a bit more. When we say we live in a present moment, so we do not think about the future or the past. For me, the past is not a problem. I never ever think about my past that happened. But the future is something that is always worrying me. So how do we actually strike a balance between living in a present, that means not to worry about the future, am I right? Giving an example, my son is going to UK in January, so it has been worrying me for like the longest time. I worry about his accommodation, I worry about his visa, I worry about whether he has medication, when he go UK, is doctor available, everything that he's falling sick. Yeah. So in this case, I'm not living in the present moment, am I right? Or is it because I'm planning too much? So I'm very confused with how to live in a present moment, striking a balance between a mother's role in planning for my son and the worrying part.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
thank you.
a good question. But did I say always be in the present moment? Maybe you got that idea somewhere else, because I just said it in the meditation, we are in the present moment. And you need to plan things from time to time. And also me, when I plan my travels, I have to think about the future. You cannot plan travels by sitting here and being in the present moment. Yeah, you never get anywhere that way. So your son is going to travel to the UK, and you want to help him, make sure it all goes well, and you want to plan it, and that's all good things. So please do that. And it's not because you're a Buddhist now you should be like, okay, no future exists. I'm not going to plan anything ever anymore. But the point is that we often worry too much and we overdo it. How long do you need to plan travels? Only as long as it takes to plan. And there's only so much you can do. But often, maybe something might only take an hour, but we think about it for days and days, and we worry for days and days. And we repeat the same thinking process again and again. You're like, what if this happens, and then that happens, and then that happens? And then you go to think the exact same things again. What if A happens, and B happens, and C happens? What if A happens, and B happens, and C happens? You think the same thing over and over again. Isn't that right? You're just stuck on the loop often. And that is one thing we try to reduce, because that is not useful. When you think about something once, that should be enough. Yeah. So what we do in meditation is we give ourselves some time to actually be in the present moment. So when you meditate, then you tell yourself, okay, right now I am not going to plan or think about my son's travels or whatever else some of you are thinking about. In meditation, that's not the time. Later, I can give myself the opportunity to do that. But right now, I don't. And by thinking in this way, by sort of setting limits on what your mind is allowed to think about in certain moments of time, you actually train your mind to do that, and it will listen. And you can also do actually the exact opposite. Sometimes you sit down at your desk or whatever and say to yourself, okay, now I allow myself to fully be involved with planning my travels or my son's stay in the UK. You just really take the time for it and only focus on that. And then you will be much more effective at that. And then you're not really in the present moment as such, because you're thinking about the travels, but in a way you are, because you're really focused on doing that job in the present moment. And then afterwards you can say, okay, now I won't think about it anymore. Yeah. Yesterday at the retreat I taught how when I was studying, I'm doing my thesis, I was constantly thinking about my thesis, even at home, even at the weekend, even in the evenings. And I told myself at some point when I realized I was thinking too much about this, okay, only at university I will think about it. When I'm at home, I rest. And when I'm traveling, I also rest and meditate in the train, etc. So really setting boxes for when you think about certain things, especially when you have certain jobs that that require lots of thinking. Really create a time schedule, like, okay, from this time to this time I really do my job, and after that I let it go. And then tomorrow again I have more energy to do the things that I want to do. So yeah, you don't have to live constantly in the present moment. It's impossible to live life like that. But the point is we too often get lost in the future, and that just creates so much worries, and all these worries are largely unnecessary, because again we think the same thing again and again, and we create the same worry again and again. And usually we only need to do it once and just think of a solution and then say, okay, this is the solution I came up with, I'm gonna go with it, see what happens. You never know what the future's gonna bring. So often we think as if we think about something longer and longer, we will arrive at the best solution. But it's not like that. Usually just better to just pick one solution and go with it. That's how we make decisions in a monastery. We realize we don't know everything. I think it was, what was the founder of Amazon again, his name? Jeff Bezos, yeah. He once said in a speech to his shareholders that you just need to gather 70% of the information and then make a decision. If you try to gather 100% of the information, you waste too much time in making the decision and you will be less effective. So when we make decisions, just get 70% of the information, then make a decision based on that and hope that it all turn out all right. And almost always it does. So when you plan your travels for your son, you can look up forever things on the internet or whatever, but just find enough, make a decision, do that, and then let it go and see what happens. And I'm sure it will be fine. Thank you for that question.
Thank you so much, Bhante Sunyo, for the most insightful sharing. Shall we all say 3 sadhu together?
Okay.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
No.
Thank you.
That's not how you do Ajahn Brahm sadhus. And I am a disciple of Ajahn Brahm, so I have to do Ajahn Brahm sadhus. So do you know the Ajahn Brahm sadhus? Okay, let's do them. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante. Let's do the dedication of merits together. I would like to share the merits that we have accumulated today by listening and learning Dharma to our departed sister, Jacqueline Chuan. Let us all put our hands together and dedicate our merits. Etawata cha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe dewa anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya etawata cha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya etawata cha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Let us dedicate the marriage of participating in wholesome Dharma activity to our departed relatives and friends. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Okay. May I invite everyone to pay respect to Bhante?
The Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Arahang sama sambuddho bhagava buddhang bhagavatam amiwademi swagato bhagavata dhammo dhamma namasami Supatipano bhagavato
Let us all pay respect to Bhante Sunyo.